There are 74 seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race across the globe. That's nuts. And a lot of y'all are always asking, have you seen this season? Are you watching this season? I am watching everything in chronological order, and I am doing that for my Drag Race podcast. You can check that out in the links below, or there is a semi-visual podcast here on YouTube. And today I'm going to be giving a spicy opinion on every season that I have seen so far. That's right, every season. So I'm gonna try and buckle in, lock in, and do this thing. We're gonna start with season 1 and just get the mainline seasons knocked out. Spicy opinion about season 1. This season was perfect for BB to win because she is simply the most marketable of that entire cast. I love me some Nina Flowers, and I think if this were maybe season 9 or 10, Nina easily could have won, but they needed someone who could appeal to a global audience, and I think that BB was that person. Other spicy opinion, she lost the stronger lip sync. But again, I think that she was the more marketable of those two. Season 2, my spicy opinion is that Jujubee was the most snubbed of that group. People say that Raven was robbed. High-key Juju was. Season 3 remains one of my favorite seasons of all time. We have the most iconic queens of every season forever. Alexis Mateo, Yara Sofia, Raja, Manila, Carmen, Delta, Stacey Lane Matthews. This is an incredible season. My only spicy opinion is that a lot of the language used at this time has grown to be a little problematic. But otherwise, it holds up as one of the best seasons because it is so genuinely competitive. Season 4 is kind of a disaster because the show is in this weird period where it's trying to decide if it wants to be a competition show or a TV show. And I think it's always at odds with what it wants to do. And its competitors are plugged into that as well, because you've got Latrice and Chad, two main endgame players who get a lot of story time, who are really zoned in on that competition element. And then you've got Jeremy and Redacted, who are really zeroed in on the TV side and are trying to make that. And the show, I think, doesn't know how to edit around that, and I don't think they know how to navigate around that. So it's just overall kind of a messy season. Season 5 is one of the great seasons across the franchises because it has everything in it. It has good storyline, it has villains, relationships, and cliques. It's got the underdog storyline. It has some banger challenges and lackluster runways. Every trope that exists across Drag Race is found in this season. Spicy opinion though? I don't think I have one. It's just a near flawless season. Season 6 is one of the fan favorites. My spicy opinion is that this is a kind of lousy season. Not because of the cast, and I know that some of y'all are gonna start freaking out and your impulse control is driving you nuts. The edit around season 6 is kind of frustrating to watch because the show is leaning in even heavier into this is television. We are marketing towards other people that are not queer. And you can see that in that very first TV challenge where they've got Golden Girls as a box and then Duck Dynasty. In what universe is Duck Dynasty on the same cunty level as Dancing with the Stars for a box? The style of this season was definitely, we are marketing towards everybody now. We're trying to hit Bob and Betty beer can. The critiques around people being too butch, too boy, are problematic to watch now with a 2025 lens, but are also just frustrating to watch because drag can be anything. Queens like Milk, who are bucking the trend, are given kind of the middle finger, but then the following season they incorporate a beard runway. So how much did they hate butch drag? How much of that was just in the dossier because they couldn't crown someone who was doing alternative drag? Characters that would be celebrated now, like, let's be honest, Laganja, who was larger than life, is someone who is not celebrated on this show because she's being too much. And the writing is on the walls for what they're trying to do with the season, and I don't enjoy that edit at all. Season 7, my spicy opinion is that this is one of the greatest seasons of all time. And it's that way for a reason, and it's this cast. They overcome a lot of the kind of BS that was thrown their way. The show is now juggling full-time television making with part-time drag queen competition making, and these queens broke through that mold, presented their own way of doing it, had one of the worst acting challenges of all time, and got to have this iconic blow up from RuPaul, and all the while are bringing these banger stories to the runway that honestly changed the landscape of Drag Race, probably forever. My spicy opinion is that it gets too much hate. Season 8 is an incredibly small season, but I understand that it needed to be small for the 100th queen in the room. I don't know if I even have a spicy opinion for season 8. It's a pretty solid one. Maybe my spicy opinion is that I stand with the Uber driver union. Season 9 is a wild ride of a season. My spicy opinion is that if Eureka had not gotten injured, she would have easily made top 4, and I think her presence there would have incidentally brought Valentina to top 4 as well. I've thought about making a video about what I think would happen if Eureka had stayed, because I could see a lot of storylines starting to shift and change. One that would incidentally boot out Nina Bonina and carry Valentina to the following episode after her would have been elimination, because there's no way that Valentina would have flopped if she was paired with Eureka, who's one, a workhorse, but two, does not put up with nonsense and would have kicked Valentina's butt if she tried to mess around too much. Then we have season 10, a season that I think is really not that spectacular for what should have been a landmark season. A lot of the challenges are duds and are frustrating to watch. The edit goes back and forth between deciding if it loves Aquaria or hates her. It can't decide if Eureka is going to be the winner or if they want to paint Cameron as the winner. And then a lot of these queens just kind of fall to the wayside, and it seems like it's just, all right, well, they gotta go home so that these two can be in the finale. Season 11 spicy opinion is that this season aged like a wine. I think initially it was not good, and I really disliked 11 at the time. But after watching it, it has become so lovely to watch. I love the storylines and how you can clearly see that the edit is shifting midway through and production is shifting midway through. It makes for an interesting watch because you don't know what to expect, but also it's a very odd edit in comparison to the other series that kind of know from the beginning what it wants to do. Where in season 11, you see right at the Sorry Not Sorry lip sync, you see production kind of crack and everything shifts in another direction. And that shift is interesting to watch. I do, however, hate the way that Mercedes Yvonne Diamond was handled, and I do not appreciate in any sense of the word how her edit was basically milked for an immigrant story and how they kind of exploited her story only to send her home to living in America during the Trump Rusical. Like, that's disrespectful. Season 12 is one of my comfort seasons, and I think my only spicy opinion is that as soon as the disqualification happened, they should have called up Jackie Cox and said, hey, we're gonna bring you to the finale. Come on over and get your Zoom package ready because we are going to include you there since we no longer have Miss Pie. Also, Jackie Cox could have won at least 2 challenges, and I think she was criminally underrated that entire season. Season 13 spicy opinion is not, I don't think that's spicy, that Denali and Olivia should not have been the bottom 2 during that makeover challenge. I think there were others who were worse in the room, and I think the 2 of them were passable at best. Like, they weren't great, but they were passable. My other spicy opinion is I think it's crazy that we had never casted a gay person before season 13. Season 14 was a fun one, but it is very long. My spicy opinion is that a lot of those stories fell apart after Cornbread left. If Cornbread had stayed, I think the season would have gone drastically different. A lot of those storylines between Carrie and Maddie, even Jasmine and Daya, I think a lot of those would have shifted around Cornbread and her presence there. Because really, she was kind of the glue in that group, and I think a lot of things would have changed to accommodate her presence there. And I also wonder how many double saves there would have been if Cornbread had stayed. Like, maybe it only would have been 4 instead of 7. Season 15 spicy opinion is that the writing was on the walls the moment that Sasha walked in. It was very clear and obvious that no one else even stood a chance. And I don't know if it's spicy, but I think that Marsha and Anitra should have been a double save, and I think that Running Up That Hill should have been a double elim. Season 16 is such a spectacular season for a lot of reasons. My spicy opinion is that the immunity potion probably should have not existed. I would have loved if they had just brought back regular, degular, schmegular immunity. Maybe for half the season, you win the challenge before, you can't go home the next week. I know that Alyssa Edwards ruined that, but I do think that immunity could and should come back in some capacity. I think it would make for interesting TV, and I think it would kind of circumvent some of the routes that production normally has to storytell by kind of forcing them to either reveal their cards early, who they're rooting for to make it to the end, or stop rooting for one person in particular to get to the end and just give us solid competition until about the midpoint. Season 17 was so recent, I don't want to have too much recency bias. I think that this is a fun season, but my spicy opinion is that a lot of the girls in this cast have a hard time with focusing what their brand is to the challenges and the runways. And I felt like anytime the prompt was too broad, you saw them struggle. Like they didn't really know how to connect their personal identity into what the show was asking for, where they thrived better when they had a specific point of view and reference point. I'm gonna save All Stars for the later half of this video so we can get into the internationals. Drag Race Down Under is a messy season. It's kind of frustrating for me to watch because Rue and Michelle's presence, I think, watered down so much of the culture and historical nuance that is of that region, and it really kind of dampens the significance of the drag they're bringing, I think in the same way that happens in the UK. My biggest spicy opinion, which is probably not spicy, is that it's frustrating to watch, one, because art is brought back with no actual reason. It's just, oh hey, here's some garbage that got left out. Hi art, come on in. How are you? Ready to compete again? And we don't get any reason why. And the second biggest frustration is that the contestant who's outed as having done blackface is sort of given an edit of, well, it happens. Well, let's move on. And the person who calls it out is eliminated. And then there's no repercussion or consequence on the show going forward, and the story goes away. That is really unjust. And it's a wonder that it got renewed for a season 2, specifically with Rue hosting it. I have been an avid enjoyer of the Canada's Drag Race franchise, and season 1 is so good. Spicy opinion, I think Alona was doing a really great job, and I think Alona Verley could have probably gone a lot farther. And I think Alona's got some of the most interesting runways that have been on Canada so far. Bobo probably could have won 1 or 2 more challenges and probably could have won that season. Canada's Drag Race season 2 is a fan favorite, but my spicy opinion is that I think it's probably one of the weakest of the franchise. I like a lot of the runway prompts and themes, and I love the Rusical, and I unironically stan, I've gotta check out my sleeve. But other than that, I think it is a kind of fairly standard season. Season 3 is the Canada's Drag Race season that made me love this franchise, and I think it is the strongest of the Canada's Drag Race series. The queens are next level, the storylines are great, the drama is present, the runways are wonderful. This season truly made me love Canada's Drag Race and what the production team was doing. Season 4 of Canada's Drag Race is a spectacular cast. I loved the Golden Beaver twist. I think that this is something that Canada has needed for a very, very long time. Oh, I don't know if I have any spicy opinions about this season. CC Superstar is probably one of my favorite queens that has ever graced this show, and I don't know what I connected with so fiercely with her, but I just think that Cece is it. I don't know if I have a spicy opinion though. Maybe it's that Kiki Ko should not have gone home when she did. I think that Kiki was one of the most interesting queens of that season visually, and I would have loved to have seen her in the finale. Season 5 of Canada's Drag Race was again really recent, and I don't want to have too much recency bias, but I think my spicy opinion is that that season should have been either Michaela or Minnie's win. And I think it was kind of clear what production wanted to do from day one, because it always came across like they were just setting up the finale players and just letting everybody else fall off. I just finished watching France season 1. What a trip that was. My spicy opinion is that Lolita Banana was the breakout star of that season and probably could have won at least 2 challenges, no bottoms. So was 2 bottom placements were BS. And I think that season could have gone extremely different. Drag Race Italia is a season that makes me wonder if I actually watched it. I still don't understand a lot of the drama and why things blew up the way they did. I don't understand why they went so Mickey Mouse sanitized drag with their idea of how drag queens should act and the role modelness that drag queens should have. While Priscilla was kind of a bully, it's an interesting season. Spicy opinion wise, I think the show holds too much space for alternative drag, that it kind of ignores the queens who are doing genuinely really good. I want to see bearded drag, and I want to see drag that is a little bit different from the norm, but I also want to see that drag polished. And I want to see that drag presented fiercely at the top level. And I want to see that drag celebrated for it being good, not celebrated just because it's there in the room. And I feel like Divinity and Ivana were kind of mistreated because they were holding so much space for Ava and Lakeisha, kind of unfairly. All in One, I distinctly recall when this dropped, and I remember thinking, what a weird copy pasta of season 5 and 8. It's very experimental as a season. My spicy opinion is that Cedergine was not the worst in that Snatch game. And I think Cedergine probably could and should have won the whole thing. Right next to maybe Chelsea Boy. Like, I love Envy Peru, but I think that Chelsea and Cedergine were keeping up with Janie and Envy, and the competition never really felt like it was being fairly judged. Holland season 2 is another one that doesn't feel like I actually watched it. It's not a spicy opinion, but Kita should have gone to the finale. I think my other spicy opinion is that guest judge, the older Dilfy guest judge, Carlo Bozard, could step on me and probably should. Drag Race España season 1 is now one of my absolute favorite seasons of all time. My only spicy opinion is that I think Cuando Tu Vas was probably only meant to be a 2-person lip sync, but Killer Queen was backstage running her mouth about how the other two should be at the finale and maybe she should be eliminated over the two of them because they were better than she was in the challenge, but clearly she got top critiques, so she wasn't going to lip sync. And I feel like there was some producer who was listening and said, well, if you think that you should lip sync, then let's have you lip sync. Because I think otherwise, if she had kept her mouth shut, I think it would have purely been Poopy and Sahi in the bottom to lip sync. And I don't think Killer would have ever been considered for that lip sync. Season 2 of España, I also just finished recently, and I loved it so much. And I loved the winner so much until I heard about the blackface controversy, and that kind of tainted my opinion. My spicy opinion is that Benedita was so strong in that competition, but because Sethless was there and kind of had the visual aesthetic on lock, and Sharon was there and kind of had the comedy on lock, it was hard for Benedita to stand out in a more significant way, because anytime she was about to stand out, there was someone who was just a quarter of a point stronger than her. And I think if Benedita was maybe on season 1, she would have dominated and probably been a strong contender to take the crown next to Carmen. I've only watched Drag Race Thailand season 2 because I cannot find one anywhere. 2 is one of the greatest seasons, I think, of all the franchises. It holds a special place in my heart, and I love this cast with my whole being. My spicy opinion is that they were way too friendly with the elimination button because those girls were flying off that set. I think they probably could have just not double eliminated at least once, or maybe they could have not eliminated Mocha Diva despite her being messy. I also think that maybe they could have brought back Jeannie instead of bringing back Kana. Drag Race Thailand season 3 is one that I was very critical of as it was airing. My spicy opinion is that I feel like a lot of the troubles that the cast had with Siam was kind of the same energy as what ended up happening with Lolita in France. To me, it came across as, you are not from here, so you are not of us, and we don't really care for your energy. And I think that even though Siam was so back and forth and was really good one week and then would be really bad the next, I think the treatment of Siam was kind of gross. Also, Spicy Sunshine got way too many kisses and hugs in that season from that judging panel. Also, the season was really hurt by Cantana Group not being in production control. And also, that season was really harmed by Art not being there full time. Drag Race UK is super special to me. My spicy opinion about season 1 is that Cheryl was actually doing so good that season and probably should have won the makeover challenge, but she, I don't think, was on the vision board to go to the finale. And Davina and Vivian were so back and forth with their wins that it was very clear that one of them was gonna win. I think Vivian was the more marketable to a global audience in the same way that I think BB was. And I think Davina was a more centralized UK drag example of what that looks like. And so I think production wanted to maybe award someone who could get more international people watching, where I don't know if Davina would have had the same reach. But I do think that Cheryl was killing it that season. Drag Race UK Season 2 is one of the best seasons of all time. That is undeniable. This cast is perfect from start to finish. Spicy opinion, I think they could have waited 2 or 3 more weeks to clear out Veronica so that she could have passed her COVID test and then shown up to Drag Race. Because if it had been Lawrence or Bimini that got COVID, I fully believe in my whole heart that they would have waited a month to allow them to come back in to compete. I don't think there was a universe where they would have ever started production without Lawrence and Bimini. But I think they were fine starting up without Veronica because she was not on the vision board to win. But I think she probably could have. And especially considering that she was able to be there for that finale, they didn't have to wait that long. Also, that break between part 1 and part 2, and you get to see the evolution of these people's drag, is such a special moment, and it almost makes me wish that maybe we could do that in regular seasons. Start up the season, do 6 or so episodes, take a break, let them kind of absorb the critiques, and then have them come back in. Season 3 of Drag Race UK was kind of a frustrating watch at first, but I think it has gotten better over the years. My spicy opinion about this is that Charity Case was one of the most interesting conceptual queens to ever be on Drag Race, and it bums me out to this day how the producers treated them, because I think Charity could have represented such an incredible facet of not only UK drag, but global alternative drag. Could have had that celebrated on the show 1,000 times more. Season 4 of UK, I remember having one of my favorite casts, but I don't remember the season that well. My spicy opinion is that Dakota should have not gone home during that makeover challenge. Yeah. That's it. I also just love Cheddar Gorgeous, and I was rooting so hard for them because Cheddar is what got me interested in drag in the first place. Years ago when I was starting drag and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my mug, I was just looking at photos of Cheddar and trying to recreate the eye shape and the makeup lines. It did not work because I do not have Cheddar's face, but Cheddar inspired me in a way that no other drag queen really has, other than like Trixie. I've watched Drag Race UK Season 5 all the way through only once, but I kind of started losing steam right after Cara went home because she was my pick to win. And so I got kind of significantly less interested as it went on. This is a season where I think production hands were very firmly and clearly on the wheel, and it's not as fun of a watch for me. And I guess that's my spicy opinion, is that I think you can see too hard what producers are trying to do. Canada vs. the World Season 1 and 2 I have watched, and my opinion on both of them is that they're way too short. My spicy opinion about 1 is that I think that that season could have gone to Victoria Scone. And I also think that she was criminally underrated in that very first week. And I think that Silky also probably could have snagged the week 1 win. My spicy opinion about Season 2 is that bringing in queens that had been on 2 and 3 times already was super unfair and uncompetitive to queens like La Kahena and La Phil, who had only been on Drag Race their 1 original time, and also didn't go as far as queens like Alexis, Eureka, and Kennedy. And so competitively, it's a frustrating watch. Drag Race UK vs. the World Season 1 spicy opinion is that they should have waited 4 or 5 months before starting production on this so that they could have included queens from Down Under, Italia, España. And I think there was one other season that was airing around the same time, and they should have just waited so that they could have had more global representation. This is a season where I think everyone was coming in trying to rebrand, and I think there's nothing wrong with rebranding on an All Stars, But that being the only storyline of, look, Mo and Blue and Baga and Juju are so different now. It is not the most dynamic watch because it is not really about genuine competition. It's about who's got the best storyline. And I know that Drag Race is not a real competition show, but I want it to be, and I don't see any reason why it can't be, especially after watching how Drag Race España conducts itself and how that is a genuine reality TV competition being the highlighted word. And then Drag Race UK versus the World Season 2, very fun. I think they figured out the format on how to cast globally by this point, and I really loved the dynamics of this group. My spicy opinion would be I wish that they didn't do a lip sync for the win to eliminate someone, because I think having to eliminate someone you barely know because your name has the Drag Race brand stamped in front of it, Drag Race star XYZ, is not super fair to these global stars. I think it would be so much better if there was a bottom two that lip sync to stay. So now let's end cap this video with the All-Stars, because I've seen all 9 of those. My spicy opinion about season 1 is that the team's format could have been really interesting and dynamic if they changed up the format just a little bit. Imagine a scenario where Team Shad and Team Mandora week 1 lip sync against each other. Chad and Mimi lip sync, Chad wins. And then Chanel and Pandora lip sync, and let's say in some universe Pandora won. Pandora and Chad are then paired up together and become a new team. That would have been sick. And then imagine week 2, Team Latrilla lip syncs against Brown Flowers, Latrice wins against Tammy, and maybe Manila loses to Nina, and then Nina and Latrice become a team. That would have been everything. And I think that's how a team format could have worked, where it's just constantly shifting dynamics. I think it would have been interesting to have watched. All-Stars 2 spicy opinion is, one, Tatiana was totally snubbed in that season, and I think they were just trying to nuke her track record constantly. I think that the Relaska Talks dynamic could have been split up, and maybe only Alaska and Detox could have been on there, and Roxy could have been saved for maybe season 3. Also, Coco was snubbed severely in that season. That talent show performance was not her fault. And I mentioned this a couple of months ago, and someone said that she should have just been more professional and dealt with it. How are you supposed to be professional when you are given a song that you did not compose or work on yourself, and you just have to figure out something on the fly, and that something is to a garbage track? Everyone wants to sit around and fuck a twink, but nobody wants to sit around to stop and think. Drag Race All-Stars 3 spicy opinion. I think that BB was not keeping up with the other queens in the way that the show wanted us to believe. And I think it is kind of a disservice to have put her on... What the hell? Why are children so annoying? And I think it was a huge disservice to put her on that season. I think they probably should have held on to her until at least season 7. Drag Race All-Stars 4 spicy opinion is that they wanted to hold on to Valentina at all costs. Because I think that if anybody else had been in the bottom during that roast, they would have gone on to the lip sync SmackDown and only one person would have been exempt. If anybody was exempt. But I think they wanted to keep Valentina as long as possible because I think she was on their radar to win. Other spicy opinion, Manila was mean to me when I met her, so I'm not mad that she got eliminated. Drag Race All-Stars 5 spicy opinion is that the 2 triad groups of season 3 and season 10 were totally miscast. And what is severely lacking and missing from this season are those golden years of Drag Race. Season 4, 5, 6, and 7. And this season's casting is extremely confusing because none of these girls have chemistry with each other and it makes for an awkward watch. Season 6 of All-Stars is one of the most effective seasons of Drag Race, and my spicy opinion is that the Lip Sync SmackDown is not the silky show that the edit wants me to believe, because I think that Jan and even Pandora won their respective lip syncs. That's crazy, and I'm okay with that. And I also think that Yara won hers. Drag Race All-Stars 7 was such a fun watch. We also just recently covered this on the podcast. My spicy opinion is that Raja dominated that competition, and I think probably could have won the whole thing, but Obviously, I think Jinx was the one they wanted to crown. I have no problems with Jinx winning, but I think that Raja was that girl. I also think it could have been 2 queens bigger. Toss in BB in there and then maybe give us Priyanka. Drag Race All-Stars 8 spicy opinion is that the Fame Games were created because they already knew they wanted to crown Jimbo, and so they needed to have some type of backup plan so that fans would be at least somewhat happy that maybe they got some agency in who won the second round. Drag Race All-Stars 9 spicy opinion is that the charity season idea probably should have been for winner of all winners, and that this season could have been a regular cash prize because I know that some of those girls could have used the 200K. Other spicy opinion, as soon as that lip syncing dress came out the second time and started getting peeled off like a rotten onion, they should have fully said, Nina West, I'm sorry, sashay away. Got on the horn and freaking called in a Kyria or something. Not bad for all of the seasons that exist across the Drag Race spectrum. How many have you watched? What has been your favorite and what is your spiciest opinion about any of these seasons? Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and I will see y'all on the flip.